Beginner's Corner. So thank you, Lindsay. Thank you to the UCLA, UCI, Southern California NIOSH Education and Research Center for putting these classes. Like I said, we're going to start on a little bit of a sobering note with the issue with of accelerated silicosis. So thank you again for those that are trickling in and coming in this morning. So how to improve the use of this job safety analysis. So we know there is a requirement to have an actual injury and illness prevention program in place. So this will help you a lot. So we're not required in California to do these JSAs, but it's a very good tool. It really is, especially if you start doing them on a steady basis and you really get the hang of picking those jobs that need to be analyzed. And remember, we prioritize them, first of all, those with the higher incidence of injury and illness, and also those with the more amount of number of people exposed to it. So bigger number of employees, highest risk, and also high number of incidents, right? So I was talking about how, let me see, my information is on the screen. As always, I'm an authorized outreach trainer. For those of you, most of you know me, you're on this call every month, and I appreciate your time. So there it is. Call us up to do a 10-hour, 30-hour, which is what we do. The Department of Labor issues these cards to those that care to take these courses. So I can go out to your facility and do the class either in English or in Spanish. And Lindsay and Annie are super awesome at helping us organize this whole thing. So email us back. We'll do that. Like I said, it's important to do outreach, especially in Spanish here in California. Our learning objectives. So I've got 3 for those of you that are interested in your credit units. So after this session, you just make sure you get your name correctly to Lindsay, and she'll issue those for you. And then just the objectives of today's is just understanding the importance of using these tools to improve your injury and illness prevention program. And we call them JSAs or JHAs, which mean the same thing, job safety analysis or job hazard analysis. And the goal is always the same. We got to reduce the number of injuries and illnesses and fatalities at work. I also wanted to describe the steps when conducting the JSA or the JHA and be able to review some resources. There's so much good stuff out there. Oregon OSHA has a beautiful, actually a certificate program where at the end they give you a proof that you did the whole 4-module course. That's quite a fast course. They have others that are take longer. They have an incident investigation course that takes a little longer, but they're beautiful. The only issue with using Oregon OSHA materials is that they focus on explaining the requirements of their regulation. But because JSAs are not required either in Oregon or in California, it is a very good tool, and it's a great course for you to actually put your employees through. Especially those that you are assigning the task of doing JSAs, JHAs. And then I'll have at the end a list of links and resources, etc. There's some PowerPoints and videos and YouTubes, etc. So that way you have everything you need. So we always do updates. This is the monthly first Friday of the month class, and we always look at what's new, what's out there. And that's when I started on a sobering note this morning, and I said, you know, over the course of the last 2 days, we did a class on silica dust prevention, and it truly was an illness of the past, silicosis. And now is our new asbestos. And what's happening out there is that the regulation, our silica regulation, because we've known about the issues of silica dust for a long time, since the 1700s. And then in the 1930s here in the United States, there was a full report on what silicosis is and how to prevent it. But what happened is around the in the 1980s, patented process to create engineered stone by an Italian, Mr. Toncelli, was distributed worldwide to more than 90 manufacturers. And one of the first ones to massively or to produce this at a kibbutz next to the Mediterranean was in Israel. They had the first 25 cases back in the early 90s. So by 2012, they were already in full alert about, hey, this cutting, grinding, polishing of engineered stone is making our workers sick. Mind you, silica dust, there's three main forms, but quartz is the one that is very prevalent in the engineered stone because it's a formula that brings together sandstone that is pulverized and mixed with a polyester resin. And the problem with it is man-made. And so the content of quartz is very high, 93% plus. I know if you've never heard of this, you really don't know what that means. If you're in the construction industry, which a lot of you are, you will think about some of your materials, like regular stone and gravel, which vary between 30%, 40% of silica content, right? Some as high as 70%. But it's really rare to find construction materials with such a high content of silica dust, which is the quartz content in this case, 93%. So these workers get into this manufacturing process, and at about 10 years of doing this job, they start having symptoms with shortness of breath and not being able to, take a flight of stairs, and coughing and losing weight, and they don't know why. And because it's not something that happened at work, they don't fall, it's not a specific injury, they can't peg it. They go to their family physician, and the family physician most of the time says, oh, it's pneumonia, or they send them to do a chest x-ray and comes back negative, and so it gets missed because the x-ray is not a B-read type of x-ray, which is a certified technician radiologist who reads it under a specific standard to find issues of pneumoconiosis. Nevertheless, most of the time, those x-rays, even when they're that specific B-read type of x-ray, they come back negative. But that's the only type of test required right now in the regulation. So the early diagnosis doesn't happen, and these workers continue to be exposed, continue to do their job. And then because they're not going to an occupational doctor, it continues to go undetected till they get referred probably to a pulmonologist who may send them to have a CT scan, which is a much more sensitive type of study and will detect silicosis, accelerated silicosis, and the diagnosis will be made. The problem is that there is no cure. There's some treatments out there. There's a lot of research to be done in regards to accelerated silicosis, or silicosis for that matter. There's different types of silicosis as well, and there's different illnesses and diseases contracted by the exposure to silica dust. Nevertheless, there's the link to this news. This one was probably December 2022. If you care to read it, these are two young men who are now hooked to an oxygen tank because their lungs do not have the capacity to actually perform the task of exchanging oxygen at the alveolar level. So they lose a lot of weight. They have to walk around with this oxygen tank, and they have to wait for a lung transplant. Some of the treatments may be done such as lung lavages, etc. But they're young, and now they are impaired, and they cannot go back to work. And they're dying. In 2018, we had 2 fatalities and 18 cases already detected in Southern California and the Bay Area. At this point, we have a doctor who started noticing that a lot of the patients came from the LA area, because we do have a lot of these shops all over the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. And most of the time, these are shops that, are set up in the back of a garage or a small warehouse, and the guys are cutting, grinding, polishing stone to measure, to be taken to this, townhomes, homes, residential places where updated kitchens, bathrooms, even the hospitality businesses, hotels, etc., are making the orders or putting orders through. And so this doctor in, I think it's Olive View Hospital in Los Angeles, Dr. Facio, and her colleagues started seeing this same type of cases with the same type of occupational history, and they started diagnosing these cases. And they put out a study in which they found 52 cases, 51 of those were Latino Hispanic young men who now are diagnosed with silicosis, and their story is similar. And people continue to die. Up until July 2022, 2023, we had already 10 deaths just in California. So we are at the epicenter of a new epidemic. Those are the news. Those are not very good news. And maybe that's why I don't like watching regular news, because I have to be updated in regards to safety. And there's so much to be done at work in our organization. So when we don't know what we're working with, when we don't know the hazards of the tasks our workers are doing or what we're bringing for them to do, it is important that before they start the job, and this is when to do a job hazard analysis, whenever you are opening a new process and you have new job descriptions, jobs can be broken down into tasks. And through that breakdown of tasks, you are able to analyze the hazards and tackle some of these issues. So if these employers took the material that they brought to their manufacturer facilities and found out everything that the safety data sheet said and some of the issues with it, because we had information about this since 2012, we might be in a different place. Might be. Because worldwide, these cases are sprouting. Australia is trying to ban the use of engineered stone. And the same goes for the LA area. We're trying to get a ban on this type of man-made materials. So until that, we're going to have to really take a look at the controls, engineering controls, work practice controls on how to reduce the hazard, because we haven't eliminated it. We're still not able to eliminate it. The best thing to do would be to just, hey, I'm so sorry, but we're going to go back to 20 years ago when we went to the quarry and we got the big slab of granite or marble. But no one wants them anymore because they're difficult, very difficult. They're expensive. They're difficult to be to keep unstained. They're very porous. You have to seal them with certain frequency, etc. So this man-made material brought these beautiful stones to looking surfaces to our hotels, homes, etc. But the human cost is massive. More cases are going to appear in the next decade. And there was an actual OSHA meeting, July 20th, 2023, so just recent. And Leobardo Segura Mesa spoke to regulators via video, once again hooked to a tank, 27-year-old. All right, so this brings to our attention the fact that no matter what you do, you might not be in the engineered stone business. No matter what you do, making sure that whatever is new, whatever process, whatever material you are providing to your workers, that you look into all of the hazards associated with the work, with that job, with that task, so that you can prevent injury and illness. Last year, the highest penalty was issued to one of these engineered stone manufacturers in California, and it was right around the $900,000 mark. 2 different visits and almost $500,000 in fines each time that they showed up. So that's where we're at. I have more info that as we go through today's webinar, I'll get you some more info about this and what's out there to improve the issue of exposure. So more information there, and then the proposed petition for the emergency temporary standard. Those of you are very familiar with those words because you've been following us every Friday, every first Friday of the month, and you know that we did the COVID series, and then we had an emergency temporary standard for that. So this is similar to that. In the next months, we're trying to see if, but even before we do that, and just give me a second because I don't know, I think the AC is not set correctly and my computer is working hard. Just give me a quick second here. You know what I did? I put flat ice on there, my computer. It'll cool it like this and start working faster. If your computer ever freezes, just stick it in the freezer for a second or two. And tell me if that's bad, but that works for me. Okay, so the petition, it's already in the website, OSHA's website, so you can take a look at it. And this is a lot of what I was talking about. Dr. Jane Fazio is the one that, she just put together this study, and she helped us really highlight what's going on out there. Out of the 77 silicosis cases identified among engineered stone fabrication workers since 2019, at least 10 people have died, like I said. And 75% of those cases were identified in LA County. So you can see the seriousness of this disease, 11% in the Bay Area. The next, or the emergency temporary standard, and what I was gonna say when I got up to get my eyes, is that no matter if there's no emergency temporary standard up until now, or if it doesn't matter if you don't have a regulation that requires you to do something about some safety hazard at your workplace, you have to do the best you can to not get those people sick or injured. So there is a regulation, a current regulation for silica dust prevention. There's two, for construction industry and for general industry. This one is covered under the general industry standard because it's done under general environmental conditions that are always the same, either warehouse, etc. You should at least be doing everything that you can to prevent the exposure to silica dust under that regulation. Cal OSHA is proposing, or the petition is proposing, that the employer establishes regulated areas so that other people, other workers don't access that. They're also trying to make sure that all of the workplaces that use engineered stone come under the ETS, the new ETS. Prohibition of fabrication without the use of water. So I can't even think of anyone cutting dry up until this point. So wet methods should be widely used right now. You know, water that is to the point of operation, which could be the actual handheld grinder cups, the actual wheels, the actual point of operation, cutting, grinding or polishing. But it's not enough, and that's what the studies are revealing. It's not reducing the dust exposure to under the permissible exposure limit, which is the legal limit. So a requirement for PAPRs, just like we saw during COVID for healthcare, whenever you did any of those procedures that aerosolize particles. The PAPRs, remember, those are positive pressure types of respirators. And so it provides with clean air, and you don't have to do the work. Your lungs are not filtering the air, but it's actually a machine with a battery. Okay. So that's what they're trying to get. It's going to be interesting to try and implement this, because I've seen pictures on how, I haven't personally visited one of these manufacturing facilities. I'm waiting for someone to invite me to come on site as well. But at the same time, you know, the exposure all over those shops, even just for the dust that settles on the floor, is so massive that unless I have all the proper personal protective equipment, I don't want to walk in there to do any inspections. So even the dust that settles on the floor is an issue. You can understand why, because the content of silica, crystalline silica in the engineered stone is so high. Annual documentation, strengthened penalty structure, updated guidance and reporting requirements for physicians and other licensed care professionals. But when we talk about physicians during our class, we're really talking about the issue of the bare minimum requirements during that medical examination for those exposed to silica dust, because that chest x-ray is many times coming back negative and not allowing for an early diagnosis. And so the CT scan is not required in the reg. Nevertheless, there is a provision in the regulation which states that the doctor, the physician, has the power of making clinical decisions for the best of the worker, for the betterment of the health of the worker. So now I don't have to even tell you why do a hazard assessment with all of this going on right now with the engineered stone industry. You're like, okay, now I see why we should be doing a hazard assessment prior to assigning new materials, to assigning this new, and oh my gosh, if it's too good to be true, don't we all know that? If it's too good to be true, maybe there's, you know, you got to look closely at the materials. You got to look closely at the actual procedure and what's the hazard. They're exposed to dust. If there's a visible cloud of dust, it's already too much dust, because the actual level, permissible level of 50 micrograms per cubic meter in a room, if we talk about a 10 by 10, just a small little sweet and low packet of sugar, if you spread it, is exposing the workers. So why the assessment? Because people are dying. People are dying, and these are workers that all of this is preventable. This is the thing, and this is what gets us to our hearts. Injury, disease. Those of you that took my incident investigation course, we saw that the statistics revealed that 98% of the things that occur on the job sites are preventable. Only 2% are not. That's a very big number. That means we can do something about it. We can prevent it. Even when people say, I forgot. Oh, I didn't think about it. Well, how can we set reminders? How can we make sure that people don't forget to put the guard back? Interlocking guards, right? A worker died every 111 minutes from a work-related injury in 2020. Transportation incidents remain the most frequent type of fatal, even with, and you can read this on your own time, but we just don't go really below the 4,500 number a year of people who die in the United States because of preventable diseases and injuries. So safety and health really adds to your business. Yesterday, I was at one of my favorite clients. I know you think, hey, wasn't I your favorite client? Well, that's you. They do an actual meeting every month. Mind you, the amount of money these people are spending on this meeting, they are renting out, or I don't know if they rent out. I just know that they are at a facility where every single worker, manager, so it's a team meeting every month. And what they do for a full hour, aside from paying those wages and paying for dinner, is telling them the statistics, how the company is doing, and they focus a lot. They spend a good 10 minutes on praises. And you're like, praises? Yes, they take the time and the effort to get down to the clients to find out who is doing a great job and put them up on big screens to give them awards. Then I go on stage and I do a safety topic. And we did yesterday stretching and safe lifting. And we spent a good 20, 25 minutes doing that. And so the actual culture is very different from other companies that I've seen, because this is something that means something. People feel involved. It's a family in a sense. And I know work is work, but what do you prefer? Working at a place where they don't care about you, or working at a place where they care that you are safe, that you are healthy, that they're doing things? So let's start with those jobs with the highest number of incidents and severity. Because there are too many benefits to this, right? We would be preventing this type of illnesses, diseases, injuries, deaths. We control. First, we have to identify what are the hazards. So it takes a trained eye. If you take a regular worker, person who is just starting their job, and you put them to observe another worker, they're not going to be able to tell you, unless they're very experienced in that same kind of job, what are the hazards associated with the job. So you need to involve, and I'm going to get to that, who do we involve in the job safety analysis? So it's a benefit, right? Because you get people who are able to identify and control hazards. We need to make sure that another of the benefits of doing this is also that we find out, hey, they're missing something. They don't have the equipment that they need, or they don't have the tools or the PPE. And it really does improve your safety program and your accident prevention program, because you are truly helping to prevent an injury from happening again. Because through your incident investigation, you know that at the end, when you've provided your report, one of the questions is, what can we do to prevent this from ever happening again? When you actually say, we haven't done a job safety analysis for this particular task, then you can go ahead and do one as a way of remediating the problem. So we find hazards, but we must observe them. So one of the best things that you can do is go out there and look, go out there and record and videotape. And it's a videotape or recording that stays internally within the company. You ask permission from the workers if that's something you're going to use for training, but it will be very, very valuable. And don't just do the job alone. Make sure that you have someone there who knows the job and know what's happening, what's going on. In this case, they're lifting a heavy object onto the bed of a truck, right? And so when you observe, you can make recommendations for the improvement of the ergonomics, because you know that flexion of the spine or full flexion of the spine, such as in this picture, right along with a load, is the potential for what? A bulging disc, a herniated disc. And so when you observe and see these things, it really does, if you really do your research and take your time, you will go down the rabbit hole and find the best of the best nowadays, which is a lot of the research coming from Dr. Stuart McGill, who talks about how to prevent this type of injuries. And then you put together a safe lifting policy that includes issues of when these workers need to do full flexion. So finding a hazard. What is a hazard? The potential for harm, right? It's associated with the conditions or activities that if you don't control them, they're going to cause injury or illness. So we have to identify them first in order to eliminate them and prevent them. So there's a ton of hazards that could occur. So it's good to have someone who's trained and who can consciously take a look at that list of hazards. Making a list of hazards for your type of industry is a good idea. I took this chart from a resource that I have listed at the end of this webinar, and it's for the mining industry. But I like this example because they didn't just say electric shock, burn, smoke, and inhalation. That's it. No, they went as far as to say it's a hazard to whom? And then electrical to people. Okay, electric shock, burn, smoke, inhalation. To equipment, unplanned movement, fire, circuit damage. To production, supply. So hazards, when you are doing safety and when you are, especially if you're in the environmental health and safety department, you know that you have to be able to control hazards, not just to people, but to the public, to the environment, right? Because you also have EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, to deal with, right? So this is a good one. I liked it because it does put a table with all of its considerations. Hazards to people, to equipment, to production, to environment, because you do want to make sure that you avoid injury, the risk of injury to people and the public, but you also don't want to lose money through having equipment that fails, or to production by, you know, having these potential hazards endanger your production, or the environment. So what is a job hazard analysis? So ideally, you know, it's a technique. You're going to have forms and you're going to have a step-by-step process that you're going to follow. The simpler, the better. The more complex the job, the more complex the JSA. But when we can simplify things, you will find out that everybody's happy. If you pull up a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, it's a way of showing that you did a job hazard analysis, and you provide it to your foremen, leadmen, and workers, they're going to look at it and say, what is this? It's so hard to understand. And there's keys over here and codes, and the L means loss, and the H means high, and you put a lot of different codes and words and keys. So that wouldn't be the best thing. The best thing to do would be to really keep it simple. So techniques, right? We're going to see a couple of forms that are useful. We are trying to focus on that relationship of what the worker is doing at that point in time. Like they were lifting. Okay, so what is his job? His job is to load and unload material. Okay, that's a job, but that job can be broken down into tasks. And the tasks are the ones that we're going to break down into steps. And the steps are the ones that we will analyze. Each hazard, each control, right? So the whole goal of this is always to do this analysis in order to eliminate or at least reduce under the PEL, or to the best possible, or to an acceptable risk level, that particular hazard that you were able to identify, so that there is no injury, so that there is no illness. So the process, who should we include? When we are doing a job hazard analysis or a job safety analysis, and I'm using them interchangeably, we include management, we include the supervisor, the lead person, and we say, because I need you, you know what you're doing, you know why you do this. For example, if you're unloading material off the bed of the truck, I noticed that these objects are heavier than 50 pounds, and yet the worker is doing him alone. Why is that, you know? And so his job is loading and unloading, right? That's the job, but there are many tasks to that job. You're gonna choose one task and then you break it into steps. So it's a team. It's the employee who's doing the job, because he'll be able to tell me why he's doing it on his own. Why is he doing a single lift when it might have been done as a team? And he's going to answer, oh, well, it's because I don't want to wait for him to get down from the truck. We would spend all day long doing that. I'd rather him pass all of the objects to me, and then I'll just do them on my own. Even, some of them are going to be heavier than others, but it's not too much. Where maybe after you do your job safety analysis, you'll be able to say, well, what if you separate them and just kind of select? And when you are unloading, getting all those heavy objects from the truck, you separate them into the less heavier ones and the heavier ones. And so you do the single lift only on the less heavy ones, and then you wait till he comes one time only and get those heavier ones to the area that you need to carry them. And so the worker may open their, okay, that works. Or after you put it in place with your work instruction sheet, because you have to create a document after doing a JSA, they will tell you and give you feedback whether or not that works, right? But it is a live document. It's not something that you're going to do and it's going to stay that way and people have to do it that way. No, it's something that is supposed to be alive, that it's got these people talking back at you. It's a document that will be modified, that kind of thing. So it's important to be trained in hazard identification. So if the people doing the JSS don't know how to talk about the hazards, it will take for them to be trained. That's why I put some resources at the end of today's session. Your team, the team doing the JHAs, should be able to, or someone in charge administering this process, if you put someone in charge, look at the incident history, injuries, actual near misses, property damage, discuss with employees the types of hazards they face. So they are going to talk to each other. And then observations are important. The thing with observations is that when you go out there to the field with them, many times they want to do the job because they're under observation. They're going to just do their best not to be outside of what you've told them to do and how you told them to do it, right? So you want to tell them, listen, pretend I'm not here. So although it's still psychologically an issue where they're going to try to do their best not to skip any steps, by you telling them, I'm not here for a performance evaluation, I'm not evaluating how well you did your job, none of that matters at this point. My document is simply to analyze the steps you take and to improve the process so we don't have the injuries that we've been having while doing this job. Oh, yeah. So now you have a worker who's willing to be observed or videotaped and who will even tell you and turn around and say, well, we normally don't do it like this. We actually do it like that because it's faster. Because if I just push it and I don't wait for him, we can move on to the next job, right? And they'll talk to you and they'll tell you, go, okay, so working under a rush or, workload too heavy kind of thing. Those are the types of information that you're really trying to get out of this process. So these are the steps. I want you to take a look at the steps and then compare them with any of the other resources I have for you. But this is simple. So, you look at the history so you know where to start. Conduct observations of each job. Make sure that videotaping them is better. That's what I do. Break down each job into tasks. So it could be your forklift operator, but that he has many tasks to do as a forklift operator. Maybe he loads and unloads. Maybe he also does maintenance on the forklift, changes the tires, and he also charges the batteries. So the job is forklift operator, but his tasks are varied. You take one task, for example, changing tires, right? And then you break it down into steps. Step 1, clear the area where you're going to work. Step 2, bring tools to the area. Because you clear the area, bring the tools. Step 3, right? So you're going to do simple statements that are not very convoluted and they don't include many steps, like clear the area and bring your tools. That's 2 steps and you put it in one. So simple statements, but just put them separate from each other. Each task shouldn't be more than 10 to 12 steps, if possible, when you're trying to keep it simple and the job is not too complex. All right, so you break it down into tasks. You make a list of, and don't worry, I'll give you examples. Make a list of hazards for each task. So you break it down in columns. And now you also include the employee doing the task in the analysis. You talk to him. He's telling you, explaining to you. This is not something where you observe and he's quiet and you're quiet. No, that's why you explain to them, why are you doing this observation? You want to make a note there. Conduct observations, but explain why you're going to conduct this observation. And as you're talking to each other, you also want to brainstorm ways to control hazards. So after you're done with it, as you're completing your columns, it'd be nice to either at that same moment say, so how do you think we could improve this? Do you like, oh, I'm all twisted here. I like to have one of those carts with wheels so that I can lay down, and whatever he says is very valuable because he's the one down in the trenches doing the job. this controlling of hazards is the goal of the job safety analysis or the job hazard analysis. So it might bring issues up. We might have to redesign completely this job that we're doing here, this task. We might completely have to eliminate it, right? So in order to put controls in place, we'll look at the hierarchy of controls, right? And I'll show you that in a moment. But a little bit more breaking the job into tasks. Identify the job, then you make sure you write down a list of the tasks that that job entails, pick the task that you want to analyze, and remember, too much detail, cumbersome. Nobody wants to look at it. A huge spreadsheet in Excel that looks too convoluted, no one wants to look at it. Simple, okay? Limit the number of components or steps. There's an Oregon OSHA course where it's very nice, the graphics very visual, and if I have time, I'll play this video in a moment. But here it is, voila. Isn't this beautiful? Oh, do I have that poor S in the middle column looks very lonely. It's supposed to be hazards, potential accidents or hazards. So you break it down into a basic sequence of steps, okay? And then the potential hazard associated with that. So if you're going to cut lumber, let's say that you are actually going to bring it from the store, Home Depot, to your truck. That's the task, loading the lumber from the store or the, wherever you go and get it to your truck. Step one, right? Choose just the loading. It would be bringing it from the main entrance to your truck using a dolly. Push the dolly with the lumber, and now you're going to open the lift gate or the back gate of your truck. Whatever it is, you're going to break it down into steps and you're going to put the hazards associated. Traffic is a hazard as you're bringing the lumber with the dolly, for example. Okay. And I'll give you more on other types of jobs. So in order for you to fill out this column of potential accidents or potential hazards, you need to know what could be a hazard, right? And so it is important to do that table that I showed you in the beginning. A list of hazards to people, to the public, to the environment, etc. So you know where to choose from. So hazards such as chemical hazards, toxic. If you are working with cement, have you looked at that safety data sheet? Oh, silica dust, it's in there. Chemical. So if you're working with lubrication oil, it can spill. Do you have spill kits available? Chemical hazards. A chemical when exposed to heat. Okay, so how long does it take for this chemical to actually ignite? Flammable and combustible vapors, right? And then you make your analysis, but you need to know the actual hazard. So it's good to have a list with the descriptions so that the person doing or filling out that form with the columns can pick and choose or just put their mind into the right wording, and they don't have to think and type and retype, but they can just select, paste what the hazard is, right? In order to fill out the third column, you just have to listen to what NIOSH and the Centers for Disease Control, and NIOSH, for those of you that don't know what that is, that's the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, like big brother for OSHA. They do the research, the studies, etc. So they say that historically, the best way to deal with a hazard is by eliminating it. Don't you agree? I agree. I raise my hand. I agree. Now, elimination takes into account making the hazard disappear. In the case of the engineered stone industry, which we were talking in the beginning, if we really want to stop this issue, because right now we already have way too many workers who have been exposed for over a decade. We're seeing all of these cases sprout, and we have an epidemic in our hands. We're at the epicenter of it, which you said it. Young workers are dying, waiting for lung transplants. By the time a lung is available, lungs are available to them, they're too weak, too thin, not able to wait anymore, and they die. We've got 10 deaths already. And the first case was detected in 2015. So the best thing to do would be to eliminate, to ban the actual manufacturing of engineered stone. That will take some steps. That will, you can see my expression there. There's so much going into banning a substance, a material, a chemical. But LA is already trying to get that through. So elimination, substitution, that would be the best thing. But the next thing on the pyramid of controls is engineering controls, which is a change in the environment, right? So these are ideas for you. This is how you think. This is the new you. I always say, this is how you think. You follow the standards, you follow the regulations with a mindset of elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, and personal protective equipment. Because the first thing you do to protect workers, let's say you have a manufacturing type of shop of engineered stone where you cut engineered stone to install at, condos or townhomes. And then you think, well, still, oh yeah, we know it's bad dust. So I'm just going to put everyone on a respirator. So you started backwards. You started with personal protective equipment, right? Have you done your air monitoring? Air monitoring will tell you what type of hazard they're being exposed to make the determination as to what type of respirator they need. So it's at the very bottom of the pyramid because it depends on a human being to know how to put it on, take it off, etc., clean it, disinfect it, and the life of the piece of equipment versus looking at it, can we eliminate this hazard first? So in order to fill out that third column, you must recommend procedures, and you could do long-term and short-term, right? Because sometimes bringing or completely eliminating the actual selling, installation, fabrication of engineered stone at this point, well, if you were trying to really stop it, you would just close your shop. But what do you do then, right? What do you do then? Not that I'm encouraging this to happen, but yes. After you do your analysis, you are able to put together that third column of how can we prevent this. So there's an exposure study, and I have the link there, and at the end also in your resources. This was done by the industrial hygienists who are doing a lot of the consultation service for the engineered stone manufacturing process. And so they're doing exactly what we're saying. After you detect or identify the hazards, and then you break the task into steps, you can actually start eliminating the hazard and looking into the controls, right? What can you do to prevent it? And so in this exposure study, which was experimental, and it's all in the respirable crystalline silica suppression during artificial stone countertop cutting, volume 59, issue 1, January 2015, we see that wetting the saw blade grinding wheel, look at this picture. There's water at the point of operation. So there's no dry cutting anymore. They're doing everything they can. They're throwing everything literally in the kitchen sink to prevent exposure. So now they are combining wet methods with the use of a local exhaustion ventilation method. So he's grabbing with the left arm the duct, and he's putting it right at the point of operation. So he's combining two controls. And here's the thing that they found out. This is back in January 2015. The dry cutting is associated with levels of 880 times the current permissible exposure limit. And that's how some shops are still doing it, dry cutting. But if you have a wetted blade and a local exhaust ventilation system together, like in the picture, the levels of exposure get significantly reduced. I mean, greatly reduced to 12.08 times the current PEL. So there is nothing at this point, because the studies take a long time to be done. There is really nothing at this point. And thank you for the research that OSHA is putting into place for employers to get the information they need. But even with all of this, with the technologies that we have under this study, we still haven't been able to reduce it under the PEL, the permissible exposure limit. So there's still a lot to be done. Okay, so let's move into simple job safety analysis. How would it look like? So now let's really bring everything that I talked about together and talk. Let's say that the task is grinding iron castings. So see, I'm not saying the job title is, this is a task that this operator does. You pick that because that's where you have the highest incidence of injury, right? So now you say, okay, the task is grinding iron castings. You divide it into steps. Step 1, and I'm just going to do 3 steps so that we don't go crazy with the full JSA. You could have different forms. This one is done more in a descriptive manner, and you can add your pictures there as well. So step 1, reach into metal box to right of machine. So you're on the right side, should say right side. Reach into metal box to the right side of the machine, grasp casting, and carry to wheel. So he's grasping the cast and carrying it to the wheel. Step number 2, push casting against the wheel to grind off burr. So he's pushing it to grind off the burr. Step 3, place finished casting in box to the left of the machine. Simple, 3 steps, no problem. Let's use this form, which is very simple, easy to the eyes. I will have no problem reading it. So I got the job location, and then here I have who's doing the analysis and the date. So the task, worker reaches into metal box to the right of the machine, grasp a 15-pound casting. So right there, you have 2 steps. Worker reaches into metal box to the right of machine, grasp a 15-pound casting, carries it to the grinding wheel. So you can break it down even into 2 steps, right? Because that's the task description. Now the hazard description, picking up a casting, the employee could drop it onto his foot. The casting's weight and height could seriously injure the worker's foot or toes. What are the hazard controls? Number 1, remove castings from the box, place them on a table next to the grinder, wear steel-toe shoes with protection, change protective gloves that allow a better grip, use a device to pick up castings. So this is a more descriptive type of JSA. We would like to see, what I would like to see is that you break it down into detailed steps, because this is the task description, right? Task description, worker reaches into metal box to the right of machine, grasp it, same thing as the previous one. The hazard description, castings have sharp burrs and edges that can cause severe lacerations. Hazard controls, use a device such as a clamp to pick up castings. So you can see someone already did the brainstorming to come up with some solutions for those problems. So what's the hazard description? Reaching, twisting, lifting. So you're putting together those ideas, and the worker is telling, well, I'm reaching here, I'm twisting here, and these are 50 pounds, but we have 30-pound ones, blah, blah, blah. They talk to you. Move them from the ground, place them closer to the work zone. So instead of lifting from the ground, you're gonna have them maybe with a lift table, one of those nice pieces of equipment that allow for the machine to go up and down so that the worker doesn't have to do it, and brings it to the power zone of the worker. And then training, right? Such as not twisting while lifting, etc. So when we talk about poorly done JSAs, we have a hazard assessment that says steps working with lumber, and it's just one big lump of hazards: exposure to falling materials, foot and head injuries, job requirement, wear safety shoes, do not drop materials. So that is not breaking it down into 1 through 10, associating a hazard to each of these steps, and then saying how you're going to control it. So what happens when you do something like this is that you miss a lot of the hazards, and you miss a lot of the analysis that will give you information as to the controls that you need to put in place. So I like this other example for trash pickup and disposal. What I recommended on this one is that when it says required PPE, you break it into 2 spaces, 2 columns, one for required PPE and another space for required equipment or materials. Because they put trash bags. A trash bag is not a piece of personal protective equipment, right? The custodial cart is also not a piece of personal protective equipment. It can contain the PPE, but that's part of what the equipment and material in preparation to doing this task is all about. So this form is also good. It can divide required PPE, required materials, recommended trainings. That's beautiful. It's very easy to read. It's allowing you to see, okay, so that's in preparation to the task. And I like this. For example, it says visually inspect trash for any unusual items on the surface. So you're visually inspecting the trash, any unusual items like needles, etc. So what are the hazards? And you should put there, you know, when you're visually inspecting, there is no hazard to the visual inspection. So none. Controls none, because that's the first step. You just kind of look at what's up. What do you have there? Number 2, attempt to lift trash bag out of the container. So why do you attempt it? Well, the worker says, well, I attempted first because I want to see how heavy it is. If I feel it is too heavy, I'm just going to hurt my back, so I'm not going to do it. So what's the hazard? Even when you attempt to lift it, you don't know what's in it, you may get a back strain. So test the weight before attempting the final lift. So that's a good thing. The control is, just test it. Do not fully lift it without testing it. If team assist is not available, remove your articles of trash from the top. So I am getting to a form that I am more comfortable with. It's easy to read. You can pass it around. You can actually derive a work instruction sheet from this, right? Or use this as part of your work instructions. Number 3, lift. Because what happens is a job safety analysis breaks it down into steps, what's really happening out there. And then your work instruction sheet should tell them how to do it the right way. So the job safety analysis considers all the steps that are being done at the point of observation when you're observing the worker. And it doesn't mean at that point it is a controlled process. That's the whole point of the job safety analysis. Once you've done your job safety analysis, then you spit out a document that says step by step, this is what I want you to do, because that way you will say, number one, visual inspect, number two, attempt to lift, test the weight in order to find out how heavy it is. So that would be the second step on your work instruction sheet, which is the actual result of your job safety analysis. So it would be in the form of a work instruction sheet, or could be in the form of a standard operating procedure. But we do not provide work instruction sheets or standard operating procedures without the proper analysis. And one of the tools is this job safety analysis or job hazard analysis. So once the trash is lifted, what are the hazards? The back strain, the cuts, punctures by needles. So what are the controls? We already said testing, so you could eliminate that part because you tested it when you were trying to see how heavy it was in the previous step. But if too heavy, ask for team assist. If team assist is not available, remove the few articles of trash. Do not process trash back against your body. The problem that I have there is, and this is where the brainstorm happens, is if you get your hand in there and then you get pricked with a needle or some sort of glass or anything that cuts that person, now you have that injury on your hand. So cuts, punctures. So as a control, I would not want to remove any articles. So you would actually make the team assist a mandatory type of issue at the moment that you put your work instruction sheet. Does that make sense now? Very cool. So do not press trash back against your body. So once you lift it, because it's not too heavy, you didn't remove anything out of it because this is just not good. It could create that issue of getting cut or punctured. Now, once you lift it, do not press it against your body. Do not try to compress it with your arms, your hands, or your torso. That's a huge no-no, because whatever you didn't prick yourself with in the beginning, now it'll happen now, right? So install sharps containers in appropriate areas. So that's another whole issue. With sharps containers, and depending where you're picking up this trash, you could do some research as to what's available to workers so that regular trash does not end up containing hazardous materials such as needles, right? Because there's a mandate even in your cities for regular residents to dispose of needles properly to avoid this type of issue. So when you do not do a JSA and provide with an actual list of steps to do a job, you will miss a lot of the hazards associated with each of the steps, and you will miss the proper controls. So a complex JSA can be used by the person who is doing this process, and you can break the job steps or tasks into, does it have any stress associated with it? What is the number of people, the frequency, the severity, the likelihood, etc. And you can follow your form, and you can put it together. There are many of these tools that I have available to you that give you an example on how to do this. I like one specifically from, this is not a tool that I got from the OSHA.gov site, but rather from a coal mining site. So let me take you to that and share. Give me a quick second, okay, to get it to share with you, because I can't see the top. When the bar appears at the top of my screen, I can't see anything of what I'm trying to show you. So let me get a second here. Once again, let me click on it. Workplace Risk Assessment Control. They do a beautiful job of explaining how to do it more complex. So instead of just using your simple 3-column form, which is fine for something, a task that is simple. For example, the issue of the janitorial job. So janitorial service, and then breaking down a task of picking up the trash from a trash enclosure, right? You break down the task because you've had a lot of injuries there, either back strains and sprains, and aside from that, you've had some bloodborne pathogens, punctures, with needles. So because you've had a high incidence or number of injuries in that regard, you do a JSA, and then you put together a work instruction sheet or a standard operating procedure for that particular task. Good, all good. But when the job is much more risky and entails or has more complexity, I love this example from the mining industry, and it's not here in the United States, but I love how you get the participants. So now you know who participated into this risk analysis, and then you get and maybe the actual, hold on a second, again, the bar is not allowing me to see this. I want to zoom it a little bit so you guys get to see this better. So what I like about this form is it gives you kind of a format, an example of how a complex analysis looks like. See, I'm not nailing it to the point where you can see. I hope you can read there. But they did all of their introduction. They did, they put a picture and a map of where the job is going to take place. Then they provided a description of the risk assessment process, the whole the steps for sure. And they included how they're going to do that job safety analysis for each of the tasks. So this is the table that you saw in my slides, the risk assessment checklist based on the energy types. And it's associated with the mining industry. You can do your own. And I love the risk matrix that they put together because they want to know if they want to have a point of reference. So they have the hierarchy of controls right there, which I explained. They have the likelihood, when can it happen, the type of consequence. So they describe all of the keys, like what I said before. If you truly need to do this analysis, then it'll take this amount of complexity because it's a job where you've had injuries, etc. You want to put this kind of risk analysis table in place with colors as well, so that as you provide this information to upper management so that you can implement controls. Remember, the whole goal of this process is to implement controls so that you don't have anybody injured or dead. Let me show you that portion of the job safety analysis. This is a long document right here. So the activity, in this case, the task, right? I love this, for example. The task. Shoreline, potential hazard, increased flooding risk due to subsidence, existing control, and then they list what they have there as existing control. And then they have there if it's the likelihood, the consequence, and I forgot what this is. This is either loss, but the key is up there, proposed control. So now after they've done this or put together this whole document with the keys or the actual codes of what this means and the colors, they can provide the activity or the step, because they're talking here step by step. You see how many of these are? And they're making it very simple for the reader to peg, okay, what's the activity? What's the hazard? What's the existing control? What's the risk rank? And green is minimal. But if they have anything yellow, it's getting a little bit more risky. And then you have a list of controls. For example, the number also matters, because by taking in the risk takes in account the amount of workers, the etc. And then they tell you what are the actual controls. Undertake remediation of any mining affected sections of foreshore in consultation with relevant authorities and landowners. So this is more of a complex document where these techniques are being utilized. For the most part, what I want you to do is make it simple, make it work for you, observe the workers, put together at least a 3-column type of analysis, and then deriving from that, you can go ahead and do your work instructions or your standard operating procedures. So here are your tools. Make sure, am I sharing them correctly? Yeah, back to my PowerPoint. So here are your tools. The actual OSHA website has a beautiful publication on job hazard analysis. Read it, dissect it, and don't forget at the bottom of this, I also put the OSHA Oregon resources in regards to job hazard analysis online. It's a 4-module course and it's very easy, very simple. I would advise this for anyone who's being assigned to doing this type of analysis. Thank you guys. I know I went over a couple minutes there, but I appreciate your time. Yes. A lot of you are kind of going over how terrible it is to talk about the epidemic of engineered stone workers with accelerated silicosis. We're going to see more cases in the next years if we don't do anything to stop it. So thank you so much. Let's do our part. Thank you for keeping everybody safe, and I'll see you in a month.
Thank you so much, Alba. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for including the sections on silica, since it's such an important topic right now. So thank you, everyone. Yes.
Thank you, Lindsay, and happy Labor Day to you and everyone.
Happy Labor Day. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.